Hi there, I'm Vicki for Aussie Stampers. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you step by step how to make a vintage mixed media board. Now here it is finished. It's an 8" by 8" panel, and it's a timber panel rather than canvas. And you can buy these from your art store. It features some of the paper dolls from the Tim Holtz collection, and it also has a beautiful rice paper image in the center of it. Now for the basis, I've used this piano music. This is very precious to me. This was my grandmother's piano music and my mother's and mine. And it's at that point where it's just unusable because it falls apart. So I thought, well, I'll just put it into my art journal project or my mixed media projects. So this rice paper is from Cadence, and it's model number 515. I quite like this image here. It looks as though it's a sepia photograph that has been hand coloured. And I'm using the paper dolls from Tim Holtz. I've chosen some sisters, so some very young, some older sisters and some adult sisters, and I think this speaks to the family theme of this board that I'm making. You can see how it's lovely and thick and has the ability to stand up on your shelf, or you can hang it on the wall. So I have some plain white tissue paper, and I have that beautiful sheet of music which is falling apart in my hands almost. It's just so vintage now. And I want to put some tissue over the top, and I'm just going to scrunch that up so that it's going to give me some extra texture when I lay it on top. And I'm basically just going to rip it into pieces. But first of all, I want to get that music sheet onto my base. I'm using Dinah Wakely matte medium, and I always use a matte medium. I don't like the gloss. They just don't give me the effect I want. And if you're using gloss medium in an art journal, that your pages will definitely stick together. So I just use the matte. Now I'm turning these edges right over, so this is going to give me a really good grip for the page. And I'm just now wrapping it a bit like a birthday present. So I've cut some slits at the edges and just wrapping it up on both sides, and now on the other ends. And I'm going to give everything a good brush over with the matte medium just to make sure that I have a good adherence there. But before I do that, I think I'm going to bring in my tissue and just just rip it into some pieces. I think I have about 4 or 5 pieces there. And what I want to do is create extra texture. So if you just lay it down flat, well, that's a little bit of texture. But if you do this little trick where you roll some of it back on itself like that, you get a really nice little ridge. And I like to layer a couple of layers over each other too. So on the edge there, those 2 tissue strips are matching up. And some of this is going to be covered up. I think I'm going to put that large image on the rice paper in the center and work around that, but I did want to make sure there was enough texture there to keep some interest. And you can see how it fades out the music as well. I really don't want to cover up all this music because it is the most precious part of this piece for me. And now I'm going to give it some extra tissue on the side here to cover up where the timber is there, because the timber is showing through, and I just want that to look more finished. When you're doing a board or a canvas like this, remember that it's going to, if it's being hung on a wall, you're going to be able to see the side. Even if it's going to be sitting up on a shelf, you'll see the side. It is part of the finished piece. And what I do with these tissue papers and with the music paper, I want them sealed all around the edges and the corners so that it looks as though it's part of the picture. So I kind of got it the way I want it to be. Sort of a rough arrangement of where it's going to be, I think. And all I'm going to do now is fussy cut the edges off this so there's no white border showing, because there really isn't any white in this colour combination. It's creams, it's soft browns, it's those lovely sepia tones with a few pinks in there and a few blush colours for the skin. Now I'm bringing in some modelling paste and some inks. Now the inks I have a pink, a brown, a soft pink. I brought in a black, but I ended up not using that. And just figuring out what else I might use. I have some washi tape there, but I decided I wasn't going to use that either. And then just adhering the rice paper, same deal as the first part. Now I have a good tip when you're adhering this rice paper. You're going to give it a very light coat of matte medium over the top, and you want to cross hatch so you're going in both directions. And then I have this blue thing called a kidney. So it's a funny name, isn't it? It's plastic, and you get these from the art supply store, or you could use one of those craft tools that Tim Holtz has, which are also made of plastic. They're more like a triangle shape. Now I'm being very light with it because I don't want to tear it, but it just ends up really adhering things beautifully. Now I'm just sponging in some of that ink. This is Berry Burst from Stampin' Up. And I'm just going around the edges, but also on the sides, because I don't want to forget the sides of the piece. And you can bring in a baby wipe if it is too dark for you, because you have created a non-porous surface with the matte medium. Now for the modelling paste. Now I want to colour this modelling paste, so I'm bringing in some Berry Burst ink, and I'm just putting in 1 drop. You need a very small amount if you're going for a pale colour, as I am. And I like to use my plastic spatula for blending all the colours in, because it's really flexible. And I started doing my stenciling with the plastic spatula, and I end up changing to the metal spatula because I just think it gives a sharper finish on your stenciling. But this was working insofar as I wanted it to. Now, I'm trying to scrape that off, but a metal spatula would scrape that off really easily. There we go. I'm changing over. I was getting frustrated with the plastic one. Now I feel like an artist. I have a nice tool in my hands. That's good. Okay, that's much better. Yes, a better tool for the job. And just wipe away if there's any little bits that shouldn't be there. And I'm going to use different parts of the stencil just because I can't be bothered to go and clean it off between each one, and I don't want to smear the work, so I'm just going to reuse this bit down in the corner. And then just lightly tap the top left hand side as well, because I don't want too much text, but just to end up with a little bit more pink on that left hand upper left hand corner. Yes, that's all I need. That's all I'm going to use there. All right, so now to clean all that away. Now I brought in this burlap. I ended up not using it. I was trying to figure out how to get this little girl to be sitting on something, otherwise she's just kind of floating in midair. And I ended up doing some shading instead at the end. Now the way I've laid this out, I've got some markers just to colour in almost like the sepia photograph has been coloured in. And this is a blush marker. This is from Stampin' Up. I don't think they sell this one anymore, but it's just blush. If you didn't have a marker, you could actually sponge this with a soft ink pad and a sponge dauber or a small sponge. Or you could find some gelatos in this colour. I have a gelato that's a very good skin tone as well, which I could probably have used as well. And then I have a really nice pink that matches the Berry Burst. It's not quite as vivid, but it's giving me just those little pink tones. And then I decided I'm going to bring some pink into the dress and to the top of her dress there, and maybe the skirt. So that, yes, it needs a little bit more, but not too much. There is quite a bit of pink in this finished work, but it's balanced out with some brown ink that I sponge all around the end, or at the end of the video I sponge some brown ink around, and it really brings back the vintage feel. So I'm giving the little girls some pink bows and colouring in their skin. And it's very subtle. The colours on this are very subtle, but that is exactly what I'm going for. And then these tiny girls at the top. So the way I've laid this out, I have the two, it's sisters basically. So the two little sisters at the top right hand corner are very young, and then they're growing up on the right hand side, and they are grown up at the end. But the two on the right hand side were blondes, and I thought, oh, this isn't going to work for my theme. I want all the sisters to be brunettes. They have to have dark hair. So I just brought in a brown marker. This is Early Espresso marker from Stampin' Up. And I'm just giving it a little bit of a colour in their hair so that now they look like they could be the same little girls growing up with the mother in the centre of the page. So I think that speaks really well to family. And I think I might call this sisters. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be what I call it. All right, bringing in my matte medium, the Dinah Wakely matte medium, and adhering them. Now, they are not going to stick until you get your finished layers on. They'll sit there for a little while, but the edges of them are going to probably not sit too flat. Don't be concerned about that. When you're working on a mixed media piece like this, you're building up layers. So you can see these are going to flip off in a minute because I'm moving them. See how they flip? Because they're quite heavy cardstock and they need to just be given a little bit of time to dry. But what's going to happen afterwards, I'm going to give it a couple of coats of mixed medium at the end. And that really gets everything really well adhered. Nothing's going to move at all after that. Now I'm just thinking what else I might do with it. I'm going to bring in some of that Early Espresso ink because it's looking pink, which is fine. I want the pink in there, but I want to bring those sepia tones in. So the Espresso ink is perfect for adding a bit of a grungy look and also bringing in that sepia colour that's in the photograph. Now these are the clipping stickers from Tim Holtz, and I'm just going to pick out a few stickers here. And you'll be able to read what they are when I show you the close-ups at the end. But they were just the stickers from the clippings, and I like these little stickers. I do use them quite a bit. And they just spoke to me about family or little girls. Some of them were a bit cheeky, so I quite liked that. And I decided I wanted a long sticker for the very top because the top of this canvas is looking a bit blank to me. So I thought, right, that needs a little bit, oh, perfect. So that worked really well. So now getting close to getting it finished. It still looks like things stuck on a canvas though. I really want to start integrating the stickers in with the background because they, out of everything that's on there, seem to be sticking out a little bit too much. So I'm bringing back my Early Espresso marker again and just smudging it out before it dries. And I'm also grounding the girls. I felt like they were just floating on the page. So I'm putting in some grounding underneath them and around the stickers. And I really wanted to have that little girl sitting on something. She's just floating in midair at the moment. It's bothering me. I'm thinking, oh, I need a chair for her to be sitting on. She's floating. So I thought, well, perhaps about the only thing I can do is to bring that Early Espresso marker back in and kind of draw some heavy shadow underneath her. And that might help. So I'm thinking about this and thinking, well, yeah, still not 100% happy with it. So I came back in and fiddled a little bit more, and then I realised, okay, this is what she needs. She needs to be grounded. So I gave some shading under her feet, and then I had this seat that she was sitting on, and that made all the difference. You can see there how I've shaded it out. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this project today. I loved making this. It's one of my favourite pieces. And I'm looking forward to sharing a lot more projects with you. I have a whole playlist of art journal projects, and if you haven't seen those, I'm going to put a link to those at the end of the video. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you give a mixed media canvas or canvas board, as in this case, a try. I really enjoyed this, and it has this very special spot in my craft room. There it is sitting on my desk, and I've put it up on my craft room shelves. And I'm really enjoying it. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.